The engineer lies splayed out on the ground, his body trembling violently. Ager shoves a bottle up his nose and squeezes. The engineer shudders violently, then the trembling begins to subside. She glances at you. An aerosol BCD to help treat the seizures. Bannock was kind enough to include it in his goodie bag. It won't last long, but it should give Yuli here enough muscle control to answer a few questions. The engineer's voice comes out in a trembling stutter. Fuck you, troll. See? He's talking already. Punch him in the gut. The wind explodes out of the orc's lungs as your fist slams into his belly. His breath stinks of harissa and garlic. After a few panicked seconds, he manages to gasp out a word. Bitch! Language! You slam your fist in the bridge of the engineer's nose. His head whips back, then comes forward again. A trickle of blood leaks from one of his nostrils. He looks you up and down, then gives a slight nod. You're not weak, elf. I'll give you that much. His voice sounds stronger now. The stutter that marred his speech has almost completely faded away. Not strong, but not weak. A free piece of advice from me to you. Kill me here and now. Do it quick. Because if I ever get off of this floor, you're dead. First I'll do you, then I'll do your bitch friend, and it will be messy. I admire your optimism. You're not going anywhere, friend. Ager smiles. She's right, you know. You're completely at her mercy. So tell us, Yuli, whose payroll are you on? She grabs a fistful of the orc's hair and lifts his head. Her face is inches from his. Tell us who sent you to Shotten Nest. There's a long pause. Eventually, the engineer looks away. Alright, you want to know so badly? I'll tell you. Taminus sent me here. The one of you Shotten Nest is a base of operations Berlin. My point of contact is a ghoul named Beetle. He leans forward and locks eyes with Edgar. There, you've got your intel. Now set me free or kill me. Yuli? Edgar leans back, shaking her head. You wouldn't roll over on an employer this easily. Your rep tells me that much. He raises an eyebrow and in a look of mock astonishment. No? No, Edgar's right. You're jerking us around. You wanted the name. I gave you a name. Want more? I can give you those too. I can name 100 clients who would love a piece of Shotten Nest. How do you intend to determine who really sent me? I've got a couple of ideas. You can try beating the truth out of me. You can try cutting on me. Get creative with the pliers if you like. Every time you hurt me, I'll give you a different name. Torture me or don't, it'll all end the same way. I'll be dead, you'll know nothing for certain, and my clients will move ahead on schedule. Help us out then. If you're already dead, why care about being a snitch? I won't give your she-troll the satisfaction. She wants it. That's why she won't get it. Edgar's hands bunch into fists. She's still smiling, but you can tell the heat of the but you can feel the heat of the hatred behind her eyes. I'm bad at reading. If you don't start telling me what I want to hear in the next 30 seconds, this is going to be messy. I know that look, Yuli. I'd start talking if I were... The engineer cuts you off. A perverse smile has spread itself across his face. You know, Ager. Takes his time pronouncing the name. Savors it. I'd like to tell you a story. We share so much history, you and I. Ager says nothing, but her eyes narrow. The engineer continues, his grin broadening. This is a funny story. It's a story about your time in the KSK. A story about futility. I can tell you all about the many lives you've touched and how the syndicates touched them again afterward. Would you like that? There's a long pause. Eventually, Ager turns to face you. Meowlissa, do me a favor. Sweep the building for intel. Anything that we might have missed on the way. Yeah, I'm on it. Take good care of our friend here. She shoots a disgusted glance at your captive. Yeah, don't worry. I will. Hey, there's a door here. How convenient. Edgar, just don't go crazy. Kinda don't want him to murder us. The broken body of a human man lies on the floor. His face is a mess of fresh cuts and congealing blood, and his head is oddly deformed. Despite his wounds, his mouth is twisted into a macabre smile. Inspect the body. Judging by the shape of the ganger's head, you guess that his skull has been fractured in at least 3 places. The center of his forehead is particularly gruesome. It looks soft, as though the skin were stretched like a tent between shards of broken bone. Looking up, you can see a great smear of gore on the door of the room that you found him in. The implications are clear. This man bashed his own head in trying to get out, and he did it with a smile on his face. Not getting anything there. How about the barrels? Chemical storage barrels. The light jostle shows that they're completely empty. Great. What's this little box here? Looks melted. The cargo container is empty. Not really getting much here, if I'm being completely honest. Not looking great. Let's check out the fork. Oh, ledger. Ledger. There's a small ledger lying on this crate. The cover is cheap leatherette, and the paper is tissue-thin newsprint. Leaf through the pages. The pages are filled to overflowing with handwritten text. You don't recognize the language, but judging by the accent marks, you'd guess it's a Scandinavian tongue. While you can't read it, the arrangement of the text tells you that the ledger is primarily being used as an address book. Pocket the book and move on. Fork left. And then that's all we got. Great. Well, I mean, if I had better biotech, I'd be able to, you know, tell what was up with that dude, but unfortunately I can't. As you approach, you can see that the engineer's chest is sheeted with blood. Most of it seems to be streaming from his nose, which has been crushed into a wad of bloody meat. Edgar turns to face you. Her bunched fists are dripping with blood. Find anything? She speaks to you through clenched teeth. Her voice sounds strained, and her cheeks are flushed. Having fun? I'm not doing this for fun. I'm doing this because he deserves it. And if you knew half of what this bastard has done, if you'd heard the things that he just told me, you'd do the same. Fair enough. Just don't get carried away. We need him. Tell me what you found. Yes, please. Enlighten us. I found this ledger. I don't recognize the language, but it looks Scandinavian. Egg leaves through the journal, quickly flipping the soy calf-stained pages. Norwegian, maybe. I'm thinking this is written in Bokmal. I can't read it, but it looks like a shipping manifest. Yeah, something like that. There are a lot of addresses in there. She rifles through the pages, flipping the cheap paper with her thumbnail. Looks like addresses all the way through. Some are annotated, but I can't see any names. 2/3 of the way through the book, she stops short. Finds something interesting? Wordlessly, she turns the journal around. At the top of the page, written in a different hand, is a single word. It's written in English, but you can understand it all the same. Wednesday. She nods. Yeah, not particularly helpful without a full date, but I guess it's something. Of course, Wednesday might not refer to a day of the week at all. It could be code for something. Taken out of context like this, it's impossible to say. So, what do you make of this? This should be good. Edgar ignores him. Her gaze remains fixed on the book. It might be nothing, or it could mean that he's back in bed with the Lobachevsky Syndicate. The engineer holds his silence. I'll say nothing. Did you find anything else? We need to be sure about this before moving forward. I found a body in the other room. From the looks of him, he tried using his head to beat down a steel-reinforced door. Interesting, but not unusual in these parts. There are all kinds of drugs that can make a person act that way, and most of them aren't hard to get in a place like Schottenest. Have you found anything else? I must have missed something. I'll keep searching. Did I miss anything? Hey, corpse. Nope. Oh. I thought I looked at this. Oh. Okay, I guess there was two. This generic courier drone has been snapped together out of prefab parts from a dozen different manufacturers. It's a cheap utilitarian thing, remarkable only in that it is so incredibly plain. A half-bright teenager could cobble something like this together in an afternoon. The drone sits in a charging cradle, its turbofan unpowered. A cheerful green light blinks on its front panel to remind you that it's still active. You can see the silhouette of something under the flimsy plastic dome of the drone's cargo compartment. Whatever this thing was here to deliver, it's still carrying it. You depress the catch on the container's plastic lid. Rather than swinging open, the lid slides back to reveal a touchpad. Looks as though this thing is password protected. Examine the drone more closely. Taking a closer look, you notice something strange. There is a set of electrical contact plates lining the lip of the drone's cargo compartment. It's a fair bet that this thing is outfitted with an anti-tampering system of some kind. Wednesday. Hell yeah! The plastic lid of the cargo container pops open with a click. Inside, you find what appears to be a homemade SimSense chip. It sits securely in a custom-made plastic bracket. Take the chip. A few seconds later, an angry hissing sound comes from somewhere deep within the drone. Great! As you step away from the drone, the hissing sound goes into a roar. Bright white sparks spit out from the drone's melting chassis and streak across the room. You've seen this kind of reaction before. Thermite. Whoever built the drone must have wired it with a self-destruct device. Within seconds, all that's left of the little drone is a molten wreck on the charging cradle. Foul-smelling smoke pours from the remains. You steal another glance at the chip that you covered and turn away. Hey, Ager, Wednesday wasn't a date. It was a password. Ager, hey. You're back. Find anything else? There are a pair of courier drones in the other room. No markings. They look custom built. One of them had been slagged, but the other had this chip in its storage compartment. When you produce the chip, the engineer's eyes widen slightly. He turns his head and cuffs rack his body. Interesting. This means something to you, Yuli? Ager takes the chip from you and holds it up to light. No identifying marks. I've seen enough BTLs in my time to know one when I see it, but this is different. It's been modified somehow. Go ahead and slot it, bitch. It'll take you on the ride of your life. Smack him for you, will you? I'm busy. Your fist connects with the ruined meat of the engineer's nose. He coughs, chokes on his own blood, and then spits a wad of it onto your chest. You don't know what you're holding, slag. He spits the words out like venom. His eyes are locked on the chip in Ager's hand. Slowly, he licks his lips. You don't deserve to touch that chip. I thought that this guy was a professional. He is. I know his rep. I know that he's much too careful to get himself addicted to Sims. She glances at the engineer. His eyes are locked on the chip. If these things have him hooked this badly, they must be even more addictive than standard BTLs. This wouldn't be the first time that something like that hit the streets. Talk with enough Sim junkies and you hear all about it. Interesting. Tell me more. There's a sort of legend out in the streets. The ultimate high. They call it 2XS. Huh. Never heard of it. Oh, okay. Suddenly I am a wealth of information on things. Supposedly, it hit the streets of Seattle a couple of months ago. It vanished after a couple of months. There one day, gone the next. Nobody knows why. Scary stuff. I haven't heard rumors of anything like that around here, thank God. I'm not saying that this is 2XS or anything like it, but there are Sims out there even stronger than BTLs. It's possible this is one of them. You got anything to add to that, Yuli? You have no idea how wrong you are about all of this. He struggles to rise from the floor, but his muscles refuse to cooperate. Finally, he gives up with a scowl. If I could move my arms, I'd take that chip from you and show you what it does. I'm sure that you would. She glances over her shoulder at you. Good find, Meowlissa. We've struck a nerve. Any other thoughts? Yeah, actually. I think that I might know where the other chip went. Remember that body I found in the other room? Yeah, good thought. Go check it out, but be quick. I don't know how long it'll be before we have company here. I'm on it. Hey, I'm glad, you know what? That resolved itself. Now I can just pull the chip out of his head, right? Search for the missing chip. Peeling back a patch of matted hair, you find something that a casual viewer would have missed. The man had a chip jack. It's a cheap model, sufficient for loading SimSense chips and BTLs, but little else. Doesn't take much effort for you to pry it open. Inside the chip jack, you find a glob of plastic. It looks as though whatever this guy was running melted down sometime after he started it. A chip jack like this couldn't generate enough heat to destroy a SimSense chip. The only logical conclusion is that the chip itself was wired to melt down after use. Interesting. Hey. The engineer's eyes remain locked on the chip. His face is gone pallid white and his shirt is drenched with sweat. His eyes bulge and his breathing is heavy. Yeah, I pried the chip jack open and found a blob of melted plastic inside. It was still warm to the touch. Ager examines the remnants of the chip in your fingers. I've heard of things like this before. Single-use Sims designed to self-destruct after they're slotted. Keeps the customers from reusing the same BTL over and over again. I'd say that you found our missing chip. Yeah, I agree. But the ganger who slotted this wasn't blissed out like a normal Sim junkie. It was almost the opposite. He looked wild, like a madman. Madman. The engineer lets out a cackle. A chuckle. It's a horse barking sound. You don't know a damn thing. I know that you, why don't you educate us? The chip doesn't drive you insane. It opens your eyes. His voice grows in volume, becomes ragged. Slow one, and you become a god. Ager stares at him, her expression flat. The engineer sneers. I, too, was a skeptic. Then the wolf caught me, and the raven opened my eyes. And now, at last, I can see. Tell us who you're working for, and it's all yours. The engineer spits out a mouthful of blood. It hits the tile floor with a sickening splat. He grinds his teeth and snarls out a single word. Winter night. There's a moment of silence. Finally, Ager speaks. Never heard of them. Of course you haven't, bitch. If you had, you'd already be dead. They don't leave loose ends. His body begins to tremble. It looks like the drugs are wearing off. They have money, she-troll. Money and influence enough to put the syndicates to shame. Even I cannot say how much, but I do know what I've seen is just the tip of the spear. Alright, let's say that you're telling the truth, and some sort of secret society is behind this. What do they want with Shotton Nest? They do not tell me these things. All I know is that they want to store things here. Crates, boxes, shipped from all over. No cargo inspections, not traces back to them. What are they shipping in? Weapons? Drugs? More of these BTLs? You think that I asked them? It is not my place to know. All that I know is what was promised me. She promised you the chip. Yeah. Edgar smiles at the engineer. Slowly, she pulls a knife from her belt. Its serrated edge glints in the light. I, on the other hand, didn't offer you a goddamn thing. She's got you there. Edgar leans in to look the engineer in the eye. She grins. Goodbye, Yuli. She plunges her blade into the engineer's throat. The orc lets out a startled gurgling sound, thrashes, and dies. Edgar wipes her hands clean and looks up, an expression of grim satisfaction on her face. Well, that takes care of that. Thanks for the assist, fearless leader. No problem, but we aren't done yet. We still have Winter Night to deal with. Can't do it, fearless leader. What you're suggesting is beyond the scope of our capabilities. I don't have any contacts in Norway. We wouldn't even know where to begin looking for Winter Night, and if we found them, what then? The two of us aren't going to stop an international conspiracy on our own. We're good, but we're not that good. Yeah, you got a point there. We'll let the Flux State handle it. Good call. Now, there's just one more thing that I want to do before we head back home. She gestures at the engineer's lifeless body. We still need to search the bastard. Who knows? Maybe he has some additional evidence on him. Or in him. Could be that he has headwear storage. We won't know until we go digging. Alright, let's get this over with. Time passes. The job is long and unpleasant, but eventually you find something. A hidden storage compartment in one of the engineer's cyberarms. Deactivated as his cyberware is, it takes some prying to get it open. But Edgar leans in and puts some muscle into it. With a metallic snapping sound, the compartment yawns open. Edgar reaches in and pulls out a cylindrical object about the size of a beer can. She inspects it, and a smile creeps across her face. Does that mean something to you? Yeah, actually. That's a pulse grenade. The last I heard, the Russian military were developing them as crowd dispersal devices, but that was years ago. Looks like Yuli kept a memento of his time in the Spetsnaz. He examines the grenade with a critical eye. Looks like typical Russian engineering. Clunky, but functional. If I took this thing apart, I bet that I could figure out how they made it. Well, anything else in there? She dips her hand into the secret compartment one more time. No, not that I can... Without warning, the engineer's cyber arms begin to twitch. His body bucks convulsively while his dead eyes stare straight ahead. Edgar snatches her hand back and steps forward. What the hell? Ew, I'm stepping in it! The engineer's body surges forward, a violent, convulsive motion. His eyes bulge out of his skull. Then his chest evaporates in a spray of light. As you watch, the chemical fire that rages from the engineer's body blackens his flesh and spits sparks across the room. It's the same reaction that you saw when the drone went up. A thermite reaction. His employers, Winter Night. They must have implanted that thing in him. Yeah, must have. I'm willing to bet that if we hadn't used the cyberware deactivator on him, he'd have gone up before he had the chance to spill any names. If you were looking for further proof, I think that this was it. Yeah, looks that way. Let's go. People need to know about this. Radical. That went really well. I'm happy with that. Job well done, Edgar. We did it. The U-Bahn whisks you back to the cruise bazaar, Edgar standing by your side. The image of the engineer's body disintegrating in flame replays itself over and over in your mind. The bright flash, the shower of sparks, the overpowering stench of sizzling meat. A blue-green afterimage hangs suspended in the center of your field of vision, and it refuses to be blinked away. From what Edgar told you, the engineer was a menace, an international criminal at the top of his game. And as you watched, he was consumed from within by a device that marked him as disposable. The rattle of a U-Bahn car coming to a halt shakes you from your reverie. You're home. I don't really feel much remorse for that. He was probably going to die either way, so. And, I mean, if what Edgar says is true, he was kind of a fucking monster, so, wait. What's that? Oh, I love it. Oh, I can't talk to Lane. How is Alexander doing? Alright. That was fun. We'll have a chat with Ager. See if she has anything to say about that, and I guess we'll do Blitz's thing. I'm not super excited to do Blitz's thing, if I'm being fully honest. I don't like Blitz all that much. He was like kind of a dipshit. Hey. We should talk about what happened with the engineer. Agreed. I'm ready to go over it if you are. So, the engineer was working for a secret society. I wasn't expecting that. Neither was I. Part of me is still having trouble believing it, but it's true. Yuli wasn't lying. I could see it in his eyes. Have you been able to do any digging on Winter Night? No. There just isn't much reliable information out there. Whoever these guys are, they're very good at information control. None of my contacts can find anything but rumor and conjecture, and most of that is too crazy to even consider. How crazy are we talking here? Completely insane. Stories about magical nukes and the end of the world. Fenris shamans, Ragnarok, that kind of thing. She shakes her head. Like I said, nuts. Well, there are a lot of crazy things going on in this world. That doesn't mean they're not real. She nods slowly. Yes, there are, and no, it doesn't. But this is just too far out for me to accept. It's far more likely that they release these stories themselves to throw people off of whatever they're really doing. Anyway, we stopped in cold and shot and nest. Whatever their business is, whatever was going to be in those crates that the engineer was having shipped there, it isn't our problem anymore. The cruise bazaar is safe, on that front at least. Yeah, it is. And we've got you to thank for that. And you, don't downplay what you did back there. Anyway, we shouldn't let it go to our heads. We still have a dragon to worry about. When I left that room to search for clues, the engineer told you something. Something that pushed you over the edge. That son of a bitch said a lot of things. What of it? What do you think? I want to know what he told you. With all due respect, that's none of your business, Meowlissa. Isn't it? You beat the tar out of that man because of what he told you. As your team leader, I need to know why that happened. It takes her a long time to respond. When she does, her voice carries a tone of resignation. I'm very prying. I feel like my team members might actually really hate that about me. You really want to know? Alright, fine. I'll tell you. He told me about a bunch of Polish towns that my unit swept for syndicate activity. He told me how the mob poured back in right after we left, and what they did to the people who had accepted our help. He told me about the beatings, the rapes, the killing rooms, and the torture, and worse. He relished in describing it, the relentless, hideous barbarism of it all meant to teach some sort of lesson. I think that's the cruelest part of this entire story. Those people, they didn't need a lesson in how terrible life can be. They lived with that every day. Yuli seemed to find all of this hilarious. Yeah, I know that he was pushing my buttons on purpose, and yeah, I know that he was trying to make me lose control. But the hell with it. He deserved a good beating. Yuli didn't pull any punches, so I didn't pull any punches. And if you have a problem with that, you can go get fucked. Watch your tone. I'm still your team leader. Show some respect. She grits her teeth. You're right. I was out of line. I shouldn't be taking this out on you. I guess I'm still a little on edge about all of this, which is exactly what Yuli wanted, of course. I just can't help thinking, what if he was telling the truth? What if those things did happen? If I leave things where they stand, there will always be some hope that he was lying. But if I dig into this and find that he was telling the truth, if I find out that none of what we did meant anything, even if he was telling the truth, that doesn't invalidate what your unit was doing over there. Doesn't it? Our actions might have drawn attention to those people, made them targets. They were already targets. You need to quit beating yourself up over this, Ager. It isn't like you. She gives you a brusque nod. You're right. It isn't. No more moping about, I promise, and I will look into this, Meowlissa. Wherever this trail leads me, I'll follow it, and I won't stop until I find the truth. I'm willing to help you see this through if you want the help. She shakes her head. Thanks, but no. Not now, at least. At some point, after we're done with what we're doing, I'll look into this. I'll get to the truth, whatever it might be, but I'm not going to do it today. When you are ready to start looking, you call me for help. I've got your back, Ager. She nods. I know it, and I'm glad. Now let's change tack. Is there anything else from the run that you'd like to go over? If you have any thoughts, I want to hear them. You said that you thought you could reverse engineer that pulse grenade that you pulled from the engineer. Any luck with that? Yeah, actually. It wasn't too difficult to pull the thing apart and see what made it tick. Making one of my own was a different story, but I got it in the end. She reaches into her desk and grabs a cylindrical object. Gently, she lifts it up and hands it to you. Meet the newest addition to my arsenal. I call it the Voltaic Grenade. Voltaic Grenade? Sure. It's based on the same principles as the Russian Pulse Grenade, but with a few tweaks of my own. Nice. You said that these things were designed for crowd control? Originally, yeah. Mine is a lot more bite, though. I bumped up the amperage quite a bit. When that thing goes off, it'll both shut down the nervous system and cook the organs of anyone in its blast radius. Sounds nasty. She nods and tucks the weapon back into her desk. It is. You wouldn't want to be on the wrong end of one of these. For now, I've only managed to make one Voltaic Grenade. They aren't the easiest things in the world to manufacture, or the cheapest. But I should be able to scrounge up enough raw materials to put a new one together between each run. Well, that's better than nothing, I suppose. A hell of a lot better than nothing. If used in the right situation, one of the things could turn the tide of an otherwise unwinnable firefight. That's nothing to scoff at, Meowlissa. Hey, I'll take it. Can we talk about something else? I think we're done. Cool. Time for me to take a break because my ability to speak has been steadily declining.